I am so happy that you're here today. Hopefully you're having a wonderful day. I'm having a wonderful day too. And what we're going to talk about today is I want to decode for you food addictions. How many people have food addictions? Raise your hand. You all do. It's human nature. It's how the body works. And so we're going to decode what a food addiction is and what you can do about it. Because the first thing that people think about when they think about food addiction, of course, is sugar, right? Or maybe coffee. We'll cover all those. But sugar's a biggie because people eat their sugar, and once you start eating sugar, you just can't stop. And a lot of you have these addictions and don't even realize it because it's not really anything that you consider abnormal. It's just part of your life. This is how I am. I've always eaten sugar, and I love my sugar. Well, an addiction, by definition, is anything that you do on a repetitive basis that's had an adverse effect on your life. So it could be gambling, could be spending money, it could be, I don't know, alcohol, drugs, and it certainly could be food. And food is by far the number one drug that we get addicted to because of the way it works in the brain, and it messes with your brain. And it does exactly what you like it to do. It makes you feel good. So when it comes to sugars or carbohydrates, Americans, I believe, have really been misled, especially by the healthcare system. First and foremost, sugar and carbohydrates are highly addictive. Per capita consumption of more than 100 pounds of refined sugar annually. The average person in this country eats about 100 pounds of refined sugar a year. Isn't that crazy? And that's just the average. Some of you do a lot more than that too, because I don't eat hardly any. So somebody out there is eating 200 pounds to get the average. And the basic understanding of how our bodies processes sugar on a biomolecular level, it reinforces the validity of the addiction model. So what that means is when I break down, as I'm going to do in the next time we're together, I'm going to break down how sugar interacts in your body, and I'm going to show you why it's addicting. Carboholism, we can call it that. How about that? We'll make up a word. Carboholism, or sugar addiction, is a direct cause of diabetes, obesity, high blood pressure, depression, long list of medical problems, dental problems, psychiatric problems. But it's so readily available, and it tastes so yummy. I like it too. I'm not weird. Well, I guess I am weird, but I like it too. So as long as the healthcare system continues to ignore the fundamental biochemical causes of things like hypoglycemia, type 2 diabetes, eating disorders, obesity, the healthcare consumers will continue to suffer unnecessarily. It's so amazing to watch television, to watch these medical reports, to read the medical journals and the research journals. And I do this because I have no life. And I find out, as I'm reading these things, well, gosh, we fed these rats sugar and this occurred. Okay, so why don't we just not feed them so much sugar? I mean, we do the rats, of course, for a test. Why don't we just feed people less sugar? Well, there's money involved. A lot of money in sugar. I mean, think about everything you've eaten today or yesterday, depending, if you're listening early in the morning. Breads, cookies, cakes, donuts, pasta, sugar, soda, sports drinks. All of these are loaded with your favorite sweetener, sugar. So as long as the healthcare system continues to ignore this fundamental problem, we're not going to get anywhere. We continue to treat the symptoms and give you palliative relief of your problems, but never really getting to the cause. So really, you're just covering up the symptoms with sugar, and you fail to get to the root of the problem. Gee, it sounds like what Dr. Joe, that's me, has been telling you for 30 plus years. Stop treating the symptoms and treat the cause. And as a chiropractor, we do that all day, every day in our offices. We look for back pain, neck pain, shoulder pain, arm pain, numbness, tingling, headaches. And now question my doctors and I ask every single day, many, many, many times a day, is why does this patient have the problem? And we'll do an exam. Maybe we'll do x-rays. We'll do what's called muscle testing. We'll look at your diet. And we really try to dig deep to find out where it's coming from. And almost every case, we find the cause. And when we tell you, most people do what we say, some don't. Some people say, you know what, I don't want to do that. I don't want to take the time. It's going to take a few visits. I don't have time to come in for a few visits. Very inexpensive, but still some people say, well, I don't know. It's your call. If you do what we say, chances are you're going to get great results. If you don't do what we say, I can almost guarantee you're not going to get any results. So it's up to you. So anyway, back to sugar. population, we're suffering from disorders that can really be wiped out in a really short period of time, many times without the use of drugs. Isn't that an alluring statement? How many of you take drugs right now, medications, prescription, legal medications? Raise your hands. How many of you would like to reduce or eliminate those medications? Raise your hands. I am not a medical doctor. I'm board certified in chiropractic. I'm board certified in orthopedics. I'm board certified in pain management, double board certified in nutrition, BS in nutrition, a retired dietitian, award-winning author. This show is heard coast to coast and around the world. We're turning it into a TV show very soon, by the way, folks, too. And I've been in practice now for 33 years. Most patients, when I meet them, say, Doc, I'd love to get off my meds. And I tell them, I can't tell you to stop taking your meds, but I can show you how to get healthy so hopefully you won't need your meds. And that's what's really cool, because years ago, medical doctors, chiropractors, orthopedic surgeons, neurosurgeons, nobody liked each other. Everybody fought. But that was in the days when you actually got paid as a doctor to do your job. Now, I had a friend of mine, he's a neurosurgeon, and the person had a brain tumor, and had to remove part of the skull and part of the brain, and normally total would be about a $60,000 or $70,000 cost. Insurance companies, they would pay $30,000 maybe. He told me he got $1,200 for that surgery. That wasn't enough money to cover the cost of his malpractice insurance for that day. So doctors are dropping out of practice left and right. They don't want to be doctors anymore. It's not fun. It's not worth it. It's too much aggravation. The insurance companies literally make our lives a living hell. And as if you've ever used your insurance, you probably have been experiencing it as well. And so we have a doctor shortage coming up. Well, it's starting now. It's already in the process. It's going to get a lot worse in the next couple of years. Trust me on this. I've never been wrong when it comes to healthcare predictions. And so you really have to learn to take care of yourself. And I predict, another prediction I'm going to be right on, is that the healthcare world is going to recognize food addiction, sugars, what you're eating as the cause of a lot of healthcare problems and avoidable healthcare problems. Because there was a time we had a lot of doctors, we needed a lot of patients. We don't have a lot of doctors anymore. We don't need as many patients. And I don't want you to be an unnecessary patient. I like that word. I'm going to use that word, unnecessary patient. Now, if you get in a car accident, chances are you're going to have to come see us and we're going to have to take care of you. Because if the car was damaged, you were damaged 100% of the time. If you have back pain or neck pain or shoulder pain or headaches or numbness that lasts more than 3 days, chances are you're going to have to come see us. But if I can get you to straighten out your diet, you're going to save a ton of money on not just me, but all your doctors. You're probably going to live a lot longer. You're probably going to live a lot healthier. So there's no downside to me teaching you how to be well. Because when you do need me, or us, we'll be there for you. But hopefully you'll be able to take care of a lot of things without our help. So, top foods that people are having reactions to. Let me ask you some questions first. Do you experience occasional gas, indigestion, bloated, migraines, other types of headaches, frequent nasal congestion, intermittent joint pain, random bouts of anxiety, insomnia, fatigue? Does your mind get foggy sometimes? So countless people like you are plagued with these problems, because I see them every day in our offices. And there's a lot of other ailments that people are having, and oftentimes they're misdiagnosed. Because many times patients will go get a diagnosis, and I don't want to say misdiagnosed. The diagnosis was right, but the cause of the diagnosis was wrong. Does that make sense? I can have a patient come in and say, well, Dr. Joe, I have back pain or leg pain, and we can do an MRI, and sure enough, the MRI shows you have a bulging disc. And so immediately the diagnosis is you have a bulging disc, that's what's causing your back pain. Could be right. 39% of the time it's wrong. 39% of MRIs are false positive or false negative. So we can take an MRI of you and you can have back pain and you could have a bulging disc, but the bulging disc isn't causing the back pain. 39% of the time. That's 1 in 3. That's pretty high odds, isn't it? So sometimes we're misdiagnosing things, or we're doing the right diagnosis, but I guess the wrong cause. So food sensitivities is a big one. A lot of individuals, most common complaints are often linked to food sensitivities. And if you're having food sensitivities, it can be a problem. Because this is the kicker. If you ever knew a drug addict, if you ever knew an alcoholic, if you ever got drunk, you started feeling awful, but you kept drinking. You started feeling awful, but you kept taking the drugs. Now, I'm not saying prescription drugs that you need to survive. I'm not against that. But maybe back in your college days, you smoked a little Mary Jane, or you maybe did some illegal drugs. and you woke up feeling awful and bloodshot eyes, and you've gotten hangovers in your life, and you're sick to your stomach and throwing up. And yet, what do you do the next weekend? Go out and do it again. Because when you put these sensitivities in your body, it starts releasing endorphins. The brain releases endorphins. Now, endorphins make you feel good. So even though you feel sick, you're getting high on this stuff. And that's what a lot of food sensitivities do. So many times when we talk today about the foods you're eating that you eat every day and you feel awful every day, when you start to put two and two together, you're going to go, no way. You're telling me, Dr. Joe, that my bagel is causing problems? Yes, it is. You're telling me that my milkshake that I have every day is causing problems? Yes, it is. Dr. Joe, you don't understand. I'm single. I work hard. When I get home, I like to have wine and cheese, and that's it. That's all I eat for dinner, and then I go to bed. You're telling me that can be causing my headaches, my mood swings, my anxiety, my indigestion, my brain fog? Yes. So when you start breaking down what you're eating, you're going to realize a lot of your problems are coming from the foods that you're addicted to. Because cheese, for example, I'll go off on a tangent here for a second. Yeah, imagine that. I'm going on a tangent. Cheese has something in it called casomorphines. So when casomorphines get in your digestive system, it's morphine. You're getting high on it. Now, the theory behind why dairy products, or all milk, any mammal milk, has morphines or casomorphines in it is because that when a child drinks it, it calms them down and settles them down. So nature said, I'm going to put something in here that makes the baby calm and happy so that they continue to breastfeed, so they continue to get nutrients. But you, the adult, eating the milk of another mammal, which is bizarre to me. You know, if you're a human, why would you want to eat cow's milk? Why not dog milk? Why not cat milk? It's all milk. Ew, dog milk, that's disgusting. I would never eat dog milk, Dr. Joe, that's gross. You eat cow milk? You eat goat milk? What's the difference? I don't know. But dog milk is gross, but cow's milk isn't. Still mammal milk. Anyway, I go off on a tangent. The milks all have casomorphines in them, but the morphines are different for different animals. So look at the size of a baby cow, look at the size of a baby human. You give them cow's milk, they're getting high. You as an adult drink cow's milk, you're getting high. But it's a different kind of casomorphine. And so the number one food allergen or food sensitivity we have is dairy products. So you're drinking milk and you get bloated and gassy and your breath stinks and your sinuses run and you can't sleep and you're sneezing like crazy, you got bags under your eyes and you break out in a rash. But you keep drinking the milk. Why? Casomorphines. Getting high on it. And you may not even realize that. And then I tell people, you got to give up your milk. Oh, I can't give up my milk, Dr. Joe. And I'll say, well, how about your cheese? Well, I can give up my milk, but I can't give up my cheese. I love my cheese. Why is cheese more addicting? The water is taken out. Those casomorphines are concentrated. So you're getting high on that cheese. And that's why you love to come home from work at night, have a glass of wine, which supposedly calms you down but causes a lot of other problems. And the casomorphine in the cheese, you're getting really stoned, man, with wine and cheese. And so you take it and you get sick, but then you do it again. But we're going to get you off those problems. Don't worry about it. All right, back to food intolerances and addictions. Symptoms from both allergies and intolerances, and I'll explain the difference in a second, include skin, hives and eczema, respiratory problems, asthma, nervous system problems, headaches, depression, pain, digestive problems, indigestion, bloating. Now, an allergy is when I put a protein, a foreign protein into my body, and my body produces certain antibodies and attacks that protein. So I could eat cheese, take some blood work and say, yep, you're producing these antibodies to cheese, you probably have a cheese allergy. If you're just having an intolerance, you have essentially the same symptoms. The headaches, the runny nose, the bloating, the gas. But if I do blood work, it comes back negative. So many times patients will come to me and say, well, doc, I had a blood work done and I'm not allergic to soy or cheese or wheat. But you're having an intolerance to it, not an allergy. It's really semantics is all it is. We're using different words, but you're still having the same problem. So while any food can trigger reaction, the big ones, let's talk about the big ones that are causing reactions that are getting you high because they're releasing endorphins, and this is why you keep eating them. Milk, number one. Wheat, number two. eggs, fish, shellfish, kind of in the same group there, soy, peanuts, and tree nuts. So a lot of you are having reactions to these foods and you don't even realize it. So we have to stop you from eating them. So if you avoid a particular food culprit, it may seem relatively simple, but there are many ways you can get exposed to it unknowingly. If you're unusually sensitive, some foods can even be carried in the air. This is why we don't do peanuts on airplanes anymore, because even just peanuts in the air can cause reactions to some people. Peanut aromas can do life-threatening reactions and allergic reactions. And I agree with that, because the peanuts have a mycotoxin, which is a fungus that can get into the air or get into your body and cause some real serious problems. So if you're having a lot of these problems, it could be chemical, but many times it's also physical. So folks, if you want to make an appointment to come see us, we have offices in Marietta, Duluth, and Stockbridge. I would love the opportunity to have you come see us. So if you want to make an appointment, go to my website, drjoeesposito.com, or just Google Dr. Joe, #1 Dr. Joe in the world, and we will set you up a time to come in. We accept people with all insurances, no insurances, car accidents. I have never seen a car damaged where the occupants weren't, ever. And be careful. There's a lot of clinics out there that'll just get you in, throw some hot packs on you, do some massage vibrator on you, run up the bill, and then the case is dismissed and done. I recommend you find a clinic that knows how to treat the whole body and not just become what we call them a mill. So if you're serious about wanting to get well, if you have neck pain, back pain, go to my website, make an appointment. We are, again, offices in Marietta, Duluth, and Stockbridge. People with all insurances, no insurances, we want to be your doctors. Stop suffering needlessly. Go to the website right now. You can do it right now. You can do it online. drjoeesposito.com. We'll set you up a time to come see us. So we're talking about food allergies today and food sensitivities and decoding food addiction. And they all have to tie together. You can't take one without the other. So cross-contamination can be an issue. So even if you're avoiding peanuts, you may have a product that was produced in a factory that makes peanuts. If you're super sensitive, you can have a reaction to that. And also if you go to restaurants, many times, I'm a vegan. I don't eat animal products. Now, I'm not allergic to animal products as far as I know, like meat, but I don't want it cooked on a skillet that they just cooked a hamburger on. So just be careful and don't be afraid to ask. Hey, listen, some people are so wheat sensitive, they have a condition called celiac disease that even a little bit can cause severe bloating and diarrhea and vomiting and shut people down for days at a time. I had a secretary one time, she had celiac, and it was a shame because she'd get exposed sometimes by accident. And when she did, she'd miss 2-3 days of work. So anyway, derivatives from foods that we're sensitive to may be hidden in certain products. You might not be aware that certain types of food additives can be causing difficulties. You don't even know what to be on the lookout for. And that's where the addiction comes in. You're always sick. You're always eating the same foods. Well, that's what you're probably doing. So sometimes the solution is a little perplexing. And I get that. So I'm going to give you some tips on what you can do. Learn how to avoid the foods and the ingredients that trigger the reactions, and learn how to substitute healthful ingredients that won't trigger the reaction. So a couple of things we can do, and this is really neat stuff, so you got to pay attention to this. This is homework for you. Number one, you can do a rotation diet. Take the foods that you're probably sensitive to. I would take the 7 deadly sins of nutrition: alcohol, meat, sugar, dairy, coffee, soda, and artificial sweetener. Take those out of your diet. No processed foods, because they have dyes and chemicals in it. Take them out for about a week and then introduce one at a time. Okay, I'm going to have dairy products today after not having dairy for 2 weeks. And I'm going to see how I feel. And chances are within a day or two, you're going to start getting your symptoms back and you go, yeah, Dr. Joe was right. Can't do dairy products. Take the dairy out, introduce the wheat. Yeah, you're right. I have runny nose and I have bloating and I feel fat when I eat it. All right, I shouldn't eat wheat. Take that out. Then introduce the shellfish. Well, gosh, I do have a reaction to shellfish. Take that. So you got to take them out and put them in and rotate it. I'm going to give you a quicker way to do it because everybody wants to save time and save money. So here we go. We're going to save you time and money. Sit down quietly. Take your pulse. Count it for a minute. You're probably going to be, I don't know, I'm usually about 64, 65. Most people around 72. Whatever your pulse is, after sit down for 10 minutes, take your pulse. Great. Then expose yourself to that food that you think is a problem. So eat some dairy products. Eat some wheat. Test yourself for perfume. Test yourself for hairsprays, carpet cleaners, deodorants. You can do this. And again, it takes about 2 minutes to do this whole test. I know it's a little time consuming. So take your pulse, eat it, wait, well, actually about 3 minutes. Wait about 3 minutes, take your pulse again. If your pulse goes up more than 5 beats per minute, or even 3 to 5 beats a minute or more, you're having an allergic or food intolerance response to that food. How cool is that? So now you can test yourself for different foods to see if it really is there or not. Now, in our offices, we can do something called muscle testing. We'll push on your muscles, have you touch or come in contact with whatever we're testing you for. Could be food, could be perfume, could be your cell phone. 100% of people, by the way, blow out their muscles when they put their cell phone next to their body. 100% of people. So we test you for it and say, all right, we need to avoid that. But these are some things that you can do. So there's a lot of tests you can do to find out where the problem is coming from. So if you're having a reaction, you need to know that these nutrients are being sucked out of your body, vital nutrients being sucked out of your body, because your immune system is going crazy. So food sensitivities might lead to things like arthritis, asthma, attention deficit disorder, candida, which is a yeast infection, cardiac disease, dermatitis, depression, digestive problems, fatigue, migraines, other conditions. So when you come into our offices, we do several things. One of the things we do is we test the nervous system. As chiropractors, we want to see if you have pinched nerves. And then we also do a nutritional workup on all our patients. And I'll sit down with you, or one of my doctors will, and we'll go over your diet, and we'll give you suggestions as to what to eat, what not to eat. And then we'll also find out what supplements you should be taking. And we do it in an algorithm. We fill out symptoms, and we put an algorithm together. And we say, wow, you look like you have an adrenal problem. You look like you have a cardiac problem. And we'll recommend supplements for you. If you want to just start, I recommend the minimum amount of supplements be Dr. Joe's Super Greens and Dr. Joe's Essential Source. If you've never taken these products, they just rock. They're on the website, drjoeesposito.com, or just Google Dr. Joe. Also on Amazon. If you have an Amazon account, just look me up. And they're the minimum amount of nutrients you should be taking in a day. And the essential source is fruits and vegetables in a powder form, prebiotics, probiotics, digestive enzymes, a complete multivitamin. It's around 10 servings of raw fruits and vegetables per scoop. A scoop is a serving. Then I like to take super greens as well, which alkalize your system. Wheatgrass, barley grass, alfalfa grass. There's no gluten in this, by the way. Wheatgrass doesn't have gluten. Prebiotics, we put iodine in there, which is good for your thyroid gland. We had adults is the source of iodine. We had chlorella and spirulina, which is the purest form of omega-3 fatty acids in the world and an excellent source of easy-to-digest protein. So I recommend a scoop of each every day. That's what I do. Now, if I have a big day, if I'm going on a date, if I'm going hiking, I got a bunch of lectures lined up, a bunch of radio show appearances, I'll do a double dose. But if you're not willing to do anything else, or if you're ready to take your health to the next level, you want to have more energy, sleep better, cut out the brain fog, try the Super Greens, the Essential Source. I think you'll be very happy. They're on the website, drjoeesposito.com, or just Google Dr. Joe. So we're talking today, continuing on, about food addiction. And so many times we get addicted to foods that are so bad for us. And in fact, I don't know anyone who's addicted to a food that's good for them. I have never said, I can't live without watermelon. I can't live without arugula. Because those foods don't cause an artificial stimulation of the dopamine receptor sites and the endorphin release in the brain. That doesn't happen with romaine lettuce or broccoli, because those are foods that we naturally should be eating. When you put something that's foreign to the body, that's when the body releases these painkillers, these pleasure drugs, because it's causing damage to the body and it's trying to cover up the damage. It's kind of cover up the hurt, so to speak. And so that's why you don't get addicted to things like celery. But when you start eating, this is the key, when you start eating really well, a lot of those addictions go away. I've had people come to our offices with drugs and alcohol addictions, and once we get their diet straightened out, once we get their digestive system straightened out, we'll talk about that in just a little bit, acid reflux and heartburn and your stomach's your stomach's role in this. And then we get them on things like Dr. Joe's Super Greens, Dr. Joe's Essential Source, get them on a good diet. It's pretty amazing the turnaround. I've had a lot of people come to me crying saying, thank you, doc. You and your team of doctors have saved my life. So folks, if you want to come see us for neck pain, back pain, shoulder pain, your typical chiropractic things, but also for digestion, for nutritional issues, make an appointment. We accept people with all insurance, no insurance, car accidents, sports injuries, workers' comp. Get a lot of workers' comp lately. I don't know what's going on, but a lot of attorneys and insurance companies are referring us their workers' comp cases. Because studies show you get better, faster for less money. So now insurance companies are realizing, wait a minute, better, faster, less money? go see Joe, or chiropractic in general. So if you want to make an appointment, drjoeesposito.com, or just Google Dr. Joe, #1 Dr. Joe in the world. You can do it right online. If you have questions, call us. We'll answer your questions for us. Offices, again, in Marietta, Duluth, and Stockbridge. Probably going to open a few more pretty soon. Hey, folks, don't go anywhere. Tell your friends about the show. We're going to be right back. Hey, folks, thanks for being here. Do appreciate you taking time out of your day. I am the aforementioned Dr. Joe Esposito, and we're talking today about food addictions. And what happens is certain foods, when they get into your body, stimulate the release of certain chemicals in your brain, and you get high. And that's what any addiction is. Any addiction is you're doing things that adversely affect your health. And I don't know of any addiction that isn't based on the fact that you're getting high. And so you may think about heroin and cocaine and how awful that is, and how people that do that are just evil, and how could you sacrifice your entire life and your career and your business and your family because you want to do cocaine. Had a friend of mine actually is a dentist, and he was telling me the story of his wife. She started taking opioids for back pain. He said, God, I wish I knew you then, Joe. I would have sent her to you. And she started taking opioids, and the doctors finally said, okay, we can't give you any more opioids. This is it. We're cutting you off. And she started doing heroin. She went out on the street and bought heroin. And he says, I tried. And this is a wealthy man, high, well-to-do family, higher socioeconomic class. And he said she'd go out on the streets and buy heroin. And he put her in a rehab center, and she came out, and eventually she died. And I wasn't expecting that ending of the story. I was expecting she got better, and it was an amazing story, and blah, blah, and he said, and then she died. He says, and I miss her. He says, but I know what the addiction can do. So it wasn't like this girl was, living in the streets and just shooting up heroin. She was well-to-do. But once you get addicted, you think, well, just one more hit, one more line, one more toke, one more drink, and then it becomes a problem. And I've had patients already, and I had a friend of mine, a friend that was a girl, and she was an alcoholic. When she finally realized, I said, what made you come to your senses? Beautiful girl. This girl was stunning. She said, I woke up in a bathtub naked in a hotel with the bathtub overflowing, and I don't know how I got there. And she said, I knew it was time I hit rock bottom. But she would tell me story after story of, oh my gosh, how did you got everything. You're beautiful. You got a great job. She had a good job. She lost it. And she would tell me story after story of things that she remembered vaguely what happened. And some of them I can't talk about on the radio. And so once that alcohol or drug gets into the system, it's pretty bad. But what about the sugar? What about the coffee? What about the dyes and chemicals in the food? You may not be doing things that you're going to regret for the rest of your life, but they do keep you hooked. And that's what works. So food allergies is similar because they release the chemicals in the brain. Claim about 100 to 200 people a year, but send about 30,000 people to the emergency room in the United States. In fact, that's doubled in the past 15 years. There's lots of theories as to why allergies have really increased. Because when I was a kid, I didn't realize I had reactions. And now maybe we're diagnosing it better, because that's some of the things that happens too. When you read the research and you're finding out that more people have a condition. Well, it could be that we're clumping more people into the same group. Oh, okay, well, that increases the numbers then. But let's say, take autism, for example. When I was a kid, a long time ago, when I was a child, it was about 1 in 6,000 people had autism. Now, the newest study just out a couple of weeks ago, 1 in 35 children born today are going to be autistic. You think that's a problem? I do. You think anything's being done about it? Not that I know of. And we see so many correlations to autism. We know that if we take somebody who is autistic and put them on a wheat-free, gluten-free diet, a wheat-free, gluten-free, dairy-free diet, because gluten comes in wheat, barley, and rye, we see dramatic improvements. The studies are out there, folks. I can quote them if you wanted me to, but you could look them up yourself. So dairy and gluten-free and autistic children. We see that many times autistic children have extremely high mercury levels in their body. And the mercury, to keep it really simple, is like throwing a wrench into an electrical system. It short circuits everything. In my office, our offices, we do a hair analysis. We take a little sample of hair, very simple, painless, and we send it out to the lab to see if you have high levels of heavy metals. And if you do, sometimes we can do diet. So we work with some medical doctors who can do something called chelation therapy, where we inject things like EDTA and other things into your veins to chelate out the heavy metals. So there's a lot of different things that you really need to do, because some people can be exposed to mercury and it just comes out of their system. Some people don't. And we don't know what's going to happen with that mercury exposure until you're exposed to it. And that's where the problems come in. And even certain drugs contain mercury. Fish contain mercury. So why would you take the risk of putting something in your body that might cause some real serious neurological damage when there's hundreds of other or thousands of other options to eat, like shellfish? Oh my gosh. When Moses wrote Leviticus, I don't know when Moses wrote Leviticus, but it was a long time ago, 3,000 years ago maybe. When Moses wrote Leviticus, the Old Testament, the Torah, he clearly said, don't eat shellfish. And in certain religions, you can get killed. They can kill you if you eat shellfish because you're breaking the religious guidelines. Or pork. Can't eat pork either. Why? Because these are dirty animals. Now, shellfish 3,000 years ago was a whole lot cleaner than it is today. Shellfish are filters. They live on the bottom, and they filter out the waste products. And what settles to the bottom? Heavy metals like, mercury, lead, cadmium. And so you're eating these concentrated forms of toxic chemicals every time you do this. And the problem with heavy metals is they're cumulative. They build up over time. So they can be short-circuiting your nervous system. But I digress. We were talking about why have food allergies become worse recently. Well, a lot of it has to do with more pollutants, more toxins, more mercury in the air. But also we're doing a lot of processing of our foods. And we're doing something called genetic engineering, or GMO, genetically modified organisms. And GMOs are not good for us. And they've been around long enough now that we have long-term studies that are clearly showing that GMOs have very adverse effects on a lot of people and animals. In fact, there are some farmers that have reported that they started feeding their animals GMO corn or GMO soy, genetically modified organism corn or soy, and they're having trouble making babies. Big problem with GMOs and infertility. And the farmers had to take them off that, put them on organic foods or non-GMO foods, and luckily a lot of that was reversed. Well, guess what? It looks like that's happening in humans too. So now we got a problem there, folks. You want to make babies? You want to practice making babies? It could be being adversely affected by genetically modified food. Corn and soy being the two biggies that are genetically modified. Now we have genetically modified salmon. I was in a store the other day and they were giving out free samples. This salmon was huge. I'm going to guess 2.5 feet. I'll put my arms out for how big it was. Maybe 2.5, 3 feet. And I said to the person I was with and the lady doing the demonstration, I said, now that is a genetically modified salmon. They don't get that big in nature. And the lady doing the demo leaned over. She goes, you're absolutely right. And I said, wow. She goes, I even hate giving this stuff to people because we don't know what it's going to do to them, but it's my job. And I thought, well, you can get another job. But genetically modified salmon. So here's a concern, and I'm going to digress again, is this generation may be the last generation ever to eat real salmon. Because they promise that these genetically modified salmon are being raised in pens that are not accessible to public waters, to the ocean. But sooner or later, some of these salmon are going to escape. And they're very aggressive. They'll mate with the regular salmon, and they're also cannibals. They will kill the other salmon. So if their genetics get into the salmon pool, so to speak, I'm very concerned. So these foods are causing a lot more reactions because they're new proteins. They're proteins we as humans have never been exposed to. So some of the most allergic foods, pasteurized milk, soy, peanuts, wheat. Wheat, another problem we have, a lot of the wheat is being sprayed with a chemical that will kill weeds. And so when you spray this chemical, it's called glyphosate, when we spray it on the food, it kills the plant. Now, why do we spray it on wheat? It kills the wheat so that it's easier to harvest. Once the stalk is dead, it's easier to cut down. So we're cutting down the stalks because they've been sprayed with this glyphosate, this weed killer, and that weed killer is now getting into the wheat, and you're eating the wheat. And a lot of people are having reactions to that. So when that happens, you start releasing histamine. Histamine causes swelling, runny nose, but again, you're releasing endorphins, which are painkillers. So you may not realize that, gosh, when I eat wheat, my nose is running. I just always have a runny nose. Never correlating it with the fact that you always eat wheat or you always eat dairy products, and it's releasing endorphins. So you see wheat and you go, I like wheat. I like wheat. I'm not lying to you. I'm Italian. I love wheat. But when you're releasing these chemicals into the brain, you keep eating the food that's making you sick. And so there's your food addiction. I tell this story often, and you may have heard it if you listen to the show, that I went up to New York one day, and I was visiting some friends, and I had a bagel, and it was a vegan bagel, and I love bagels because everyone loves bagels, and New York bagels, if you never had one, is amazing, and this one had just come out of the oven, and it was scrumptious. And I ate it and had some vegan butter on it, and it was just heavenly. Next day, I was in a store, and I thought, I should buy some more bread. I like bread. I should buy some bread. You know, I should get some sweets. I should get some vegan desserts. And then it hit me. I stimulated those pleasure centers in my brain with that bagel, and now my logic was out the window. I don't eat a lot of bread. Hardly eat ever bread at all. But here I was thinking, I should eat more bread. I should eat some desserts. I don't eat desserts. And so what was happening was I got high from that bagel, and I wanted more. And so many times you just don't stop, and that's where the problem is. So we talked about the rotation diet. If you didn't listen to that, if you're just tuning in, what you can do is take all the bad foods out of your diet, alcohol, meat, sugar, dairy, coffee, soda, and artificial sweetener, leave them out for about a week or two, and reintroduce them one at a time. See how you feel. If you don't feel good, don't eat it. Another trick you can do, take your pulse. And I say this again because some people just tune in. I understand radio we have our audiences are fluid. They go back and forth. Sit down for 10 minutes, just a few minutes, calm down, maybe 2 or 3 minutes, take your pulse. Find out what your pulse is after 60 seconds. Expose yourself to the thing that might be causing a reaction. The wheat, the dairy, the perfume. Cell phones. Works for cell phones too. And expose yourself to it. And then take your pulse again. If it goes up about 3 to 5 beats or more a minute, you're having a reaction to whatever you just exposed yourself to. Ain't that cool? So it doesn't seem to be a single accepted mode of diagnosing food allergens. There's a lot of different ways of food allergies. Some of the studies reviewed show self-reports. You know what? I did the rotation diet. I took wheat out. I put it back in. I didn't feel good. Okay, I'll buy that. That's a good way to do it because that's you. Others use a skin prick test. Others use blood work to measure their immunoglobulin, their IgEs it's called. That's an antibody that's produced in an allergic reaction. Very few studies use food challenges, which is a clinical test where a patient is exposed to the suspected food and monitored for allergic reactions. Now, the problem with that one is what we just talked about, it's expensive. But it should be done, and you can do this yourself. Now, you're going to become part of a study? Probably not, because that has to be all monitored and everything. But you know, I don't feel good when I do this. Well, then don't do it. I stopped drinking alcohol when I was 28 years old. Not that I ever drank a lot. I never liked alcohol. I remember in high school going to football parties, and we had a real good football team, so we'd have a lot of parties. And back then, it wasn't as strict, you know, somebody's have a keg at the house, and the parents be, invite the team over, and you're too young to drink, and we did anyway. And I remember standing at parties many times with a glass of beer, and if it was outside, I'd dump the beer out and get another one to make it look like I was being cool because I was drinking. I don't know how much beer I wasted. But I just never liked the way I felt. And then one day I was on vacation in Anguilla, which is a beautiful island in the Caribbean, and they sent a bottle of champagne to our room. We had a beautiful villa overlooking the ocean with waves crashing at the rocks. And I had a glass of champagne. I was about 28 years old. And I felt awful the rest of that day and half the next day. And I thought, why am I doing this? I don't like it. And that's when I stopped drinking. And again, I never drank a lot. I just didn't do it. And I'm glad I stopped drinking because it's not good for you. So the problem with allergies, again, is lack of diagnostic uniformity. And it's unclear whether the food allergy prevalence is actually increasing, but I would say that it is. Because I've been in practice, I talk to my patients, and I see things I didn't see 33 years ago when I first started this little game here. So I think it's getting worse, and chances are you would too. Other research shows that people with purported food allergens, such as rashes and stomach aches, tested positive for food allergies via the skin prick or the IgE test, have a less than 50% chance of having the food allergy, which leads to unnecessary dietary restrictions. They eat it, they're not having the food allergy, they're having the food sensitivity. And so you get the test done and you say, no, you know what, Bob, you're perfectly fine. Your test came back negative for dairy products. Okay, well, then I'll eat more dairy products. And you're eating it going, I feel awful, but Dr. whoever said that I'm not allergic to it. It's a food sensitivity, not a food allergen, or food intolerance, I should say, too. So the food challenges really are the gold standard, and you can do that yourself. Another problem that I find with people that have food sensitivities is digestion. They're not breaking their proteins down properly. And what an allergy is a protein gets into the blood. It's a foreign protein. The body attacks it, and then you have the allergic reaction. And that could be because you're not digesting your proteins properly. Now, folks, if you want to come see us, we're going to talk about that digestion issue in just a second. Go to my website, drjoeesposito.com. Make an appointment. We have offices in Marietta, Duluth, and Stockbridge. We're chiropractors. My team of doctors, there's 6 of us. We want to get to the cause of your problem, not just treat the symptoms. I'm not saying come off your medication. I'm saying let's get you well so that you can come off your medication. Make sense? So if you have neck pain, back pain, shoulder pain, acid reflux, heartburn, car accidents, if you've ever been in a car accident, if the car was damaged, you were damaged. And so many times people go to the doctors that are not really treating the patient, but trying to run up the bills. And then the patients will come to us and say, well, Dr. Joe, I've been in 3 accidents, went to 3 different doctors. They never did anything that you're doing here. It's the way they run their practice. I want to do a thorough evaluation on the bones. There's 206 bones in the body. Find out if they're out of place. Put them back in place. Check your digestive system. We want to be your doctors. So if you have neck pain, back pain, if you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, we accept people with all insurances, no insurances, car accidents, sports injuries. We're not prejudiced. We love everybody here equally. So if you want to make an appointment right now, go to the website, drjoeesposito.com, and we'll set you up. Or you can call us if you have questions, and we'll get that set up as soon as possible. Stop suffering needlessly. Every day, patients come into our office and say, Dr. Joe, why didn't I do this sooner? And my answer is, I don't know. So stop it. And you're going to be miserable. And you could be miserable the rest of your life if you don't get to the cause of the problem. drjoeesposito.com. So I want to talk more about digestion. Your stomach's job, and I just talked about this with a student the other day, and a bunch of medical doctors. I gave a lecture to a group of medical doctors, and I was talking about this, and they were blown away because they never looked at it like this before. Your stomach's job is to take proteins and break them into amino acids. So the amino acid tryptophan becomes serotonin in your brain, which helps you focus. Tyrosine becomes dopamine, which gives you pleasure. Glutamine becomes GABA, which suppresses your pain and other neurotransmitters. So when I see people with shaking, I see people with neurological disorders, I always check their digestive system because they're not breaking down their proteins properly to produce the amino acids, which can be affecting the brain. So let's assume I eat something. I eat a steak, which I wouldn't do, or a bowl of beans. If my stomach isn't breaking down the proteins properly, these big chunks of protein can get into my small intestine and get absorbed. My immune system starts attacking these big proteins, causing an allergic reaction. So if I can fix my stomach so I break down the foods more efficiently, I don't have the allergic reaction because I'm breaking the proteins into amino acids. If I have the allergic reactions, I'm going to release histamine, which causes inflammation, but I'm also going to release endorphins into my body, and I'm getting high from it. So a lot of times when people have food allergies or food addictions, which is what we're talking about today, they're releasing these chemicals that they're getting high from, and it goes back to the stomach not doing its job. Now, as we get older, our stomach acid levels drop dramatically. So as we get older, we got to eat easier to digest foods. We can't live on pizza like we used to. Right? You were in college, a couple of slices of pizza, some pepperoni, maybe a few beers, and then you go study for your test. Can't do that anymore. You're getting old, folks. So we may have to increase your stomach acid, and we can do that with things like supplements. There are certain supplements that can give you hydrochloric acid, betaine hydrochloride, pepsin, pepsinogen. We can try raw organic apple cider vinegar. Maybe a tablespoon or 2 of that to stimulate your digestive enzymes. But most commonly, the stomach is spasmed and pushing up into your diaphragm. And we have to gently massage or adjust or pull the stomach down away from the diaphragm so that it relaxes and it starts digesting your food properly. So easy to digest proteins are going to be a lot better for you if you're having digestive problems. What is an easy to digest protein? How about plant proteins? Beans, peas, nuts, seeds. Now those are concentrated proteins. How about lettuce? How about broccoli? How about carrots? These all have protein in them, folks, but easy to digest. And most people get too much protein. Your body only needs about 8 to 10% of its total intake as protein. Anything beyond that has to be broken down in the liver and then passed out through the kidneys. And that can cause some real serious strain on the kidneys and the liver. Another reason not to eat hard to digest proteins, like animal proteins. And then if you cook the animal protein, it's even tougher sometimes, like pasteurizing milk. We bind some of the proteins together. We'll bind casein to calcium. You need an enzyme called renin to break down the casein and free up the calcium. Well, most people, all adults, don't produce renin. so you can't break down the casein. You know where rennet comes from? If you ever eat cheese, they have to break the cheese down, break the dairy down to make the cheese. They use something called rennet, R-E-N-N-E-T-T. One source of rennet is baby cow stomach. They scrape the baby cow stomach after they kill it, and to get the rennet out to add to the cheese. So some people say, I'm a vegetarian, I just eat cheese. You may be eating cow stomach for the rennet, because that's the enzyme that breaks down the casein, which we don't produce as humans. Pretty cool. Now, we do produce rennin as an infant, but that's designed to break down mother's milk, not cow's milk. And so when you put these foods in, it causes the reaction, releases the endorphins, you start getting high, there's your food addiction. And then many times you can't stop yourself, and we get fat. I can say the F word, I used to be fat. Obesity in adults has increased 60% in the past 20 years, and obesity in children has tripled in the past 30 years. This is according to the Centers for Disease Control in Atlanta. Cravings are one of the major reasons why we're increasing our obesity, and we're struggling with these food addictions every day. And the scale just keeps creeping up and creeping up because you're getting high from it, and you don't make logical decisions when you're getting stoned. Overeating junk foods is as addictive as cocaine or nicotine, but shockingly, little or no treatment is ever given. If I'm a cocaine addict and I kick my habit and I'm in Hollywood, they give me awards. They put me on stage. Oh my gosh, Joe was a heroin addict and he kicked his heroin addiction. He's amazing. Let's praise him for beating the drugs, beating the alcohol. Nobody talks about beating the sugar addiction. Nobody talks about breaking the junk food addiction because it's everywhere. Everybody does it, so it's not that big a deal, right? It is a big deal. So if you struggle with food addictions, you don't receive the same level of support as people that smoke cigarettes, that do drugs. And there's a new study published in Nature Neuroscience that found the two are essentially the same. And that's exactly what I've been talking about for the past hour. Study researchers divided rats into 3 groups. One ate a healthy diet, one ate a healthy diet with access to junk food, and one just ate junk food. As you might suspect, the rats in the 3rd group nibbled on junk food all day, quickly became obese. Further research found that overeating high-calorie foods triggered addiction-like responses in the rat's brain and turned the rats into compulsive eaters. So the more junk food you eat, the more junk food you eat. Overweight rats had a decreased level of dopamine receptors in their brains. So the receptors that dopamine is absorbed in, dopamine is a neurotransmitter in your brain that gives you pleasure, drop. So what do you have to do? You have to take more things that stimulate the dopamine receptor sites, which is what? Sugars, alcohol, drugs. So your brain changes when you do these bad things. We're seeing this in animals, very similar to what we see in humans that indulge, and it seemed that it was okay, for what we can tell, to enjoy snack foods, but if you're repeatedly overindulging, you need to stop. Experts say that eating becomes the problem when you no longer distinguish, here's the key, between eating because you're hungry and stopping when you're full. How many people do that? A lot of people. You just eat. Oh, it's dinner time. I have to eat. It's breakfast. I have to eat. Here's my takeaway for you. I want you to have conscious eating habits. Am I hungry? Yes, then eat. Am I hungry, but it's lunchtime? Don't eat. Skip a meal. You can skip meals. It's called intermittent fasting. It's actually very good for you. Now, if you start getting shaky or, start getting blurred vision or you start getting dizzy, yeah, you probably need to eat a little something. But here's my trick. Eat a little bit of food, stop. Wait 20 minutes, see if you're still hungry. Chances are you won't be. And so if you have a snack before your meals, you're going to eat a lot less food, and it's going to help reboot the brain, because the brain has a characteristic called plasticity. You can reshape the damage that you did to the brain, and then you kick your addictions. So food addictions are really serious, and in many cases, deadly, and you don't even realize it. And they're expensive. You eat a lot less food, you're going to save a whole lot of money. So I want you to be healthy. I want to get a normally functioning nervous system, normally functioning digestive system, and good nutrition. Chances are you do well. The step 1 for nutrition, get Dr. Joe's Super Greens and Dr. Joe's Essential Source. They're on my website, drjoeesposito.com, or Google Dr. Joe. Once you start taking it and giving your body the nutrients that it needs, many times those addictions quiet down and many times go away. So go to my website. At least do it for a month. I think you'll be very happy with it. It's just about $2 a day for the Super Greens and the Essential Source. Also available on Amazon. If you want to make an appointment to come see us, drjoeesposito.com. You can do it online. You can give us a call. We accept people with all insurances, no insurances, car accidents, sports injuries, workers' comp. Attorneys send us patients all the time, insurance companies, because they realize that it's in many cases the most effective, least expensive way to get well. Fix the nervous system, fix the digestive system, get a good diet. Again, the website for all the information you need, drjoeesposito.com, or just Google Dr. Joe with the #1 Dr. Joe in the world. Hey, folks, thanks for listening. Tell your friends about the show. We'll catch you next time. 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 We'll catch you next time.